welcome to another edition of GTN Coach's Corner, where we answer all your questions about triathlon and anything triathlon related. Remember to leave your questions in the comment section below any of our videos. Use the hashtag GTN Coach's Corner and we could be answering your question in a future episode. So let's get straight to the questions.
Yeah, first one from Henry Crookshank. Hey GTN, how much, if at all, can walking be counted towards your training? I walk a lot daily, walking my dog, the children to school, nursery, and even work tends to involve me being on my feet a fair bit. In terms of just walking as transport and dog walks, I walk around 2.5 to 3 hours a day. It's pretty good going. Most is at a reasonable pace and often up into the hills. Goes on. Should I count this as base training and essentially in terms of running, just looking towards the faster end of things, or is it just active recovery and that's not really creating any training stress?
Well, yeah, big question. Good question, because a lot of people have to deal with being on their feet a lot and walking a lot outside of their training. The answer is walking is not really training, unless you're not used to it, or you're working really hard and climbing mountains and stuff like that. So in your day-to-day, if you're already used to it, which I'm assuming he is if he does this regularly, 2.5 to 3 hours a day, it's not doing a lot for your aerobic system. What it will help do is kind of flush any training stress out of your body and aid the recovery, especially if you're used to it because of the heart rate's a little bit higher, your legs are moving, that kind of thing. But you're not actually going to stress your body. And if you're not stressing your body's not going to adapt to it. So after the first few weeks of this kind of walking training load, I suppose you could call it, you're not getting any physical benefit from it. You're not going to get fitter from it. It will help a little bit to maintain your fitness, but it's not going to make you fitter.
Yeah, I guess if we were to look at the positives here, it is going to maybe help in terms of conditioning, like making you just a little bit more resilient. But as James says, it's probably not really, after a couple of weeks of doing that, it's not going to be helping you masses. We have had a question like this before where someone said they had a very active and physical job. And the suggestion we had for them is if they could actually try and get those quality workouts done in the morning or at the beginning of the week before they have then spent a lot of time on their feet during the day or throughout the course of the week. You could also look at this as like a bit of a brick session. So you try and do some of those hard workouts in the evening, having been on your feet all day. So you kind of like almost back-end fatigue sort of work. But that's being, slightly creative. Another thing is also looking at the types of events you're doing. The longer the sort of event or a lot of the kind of off-roady sort of Norseman-esque events, it kind of require this sort of training actually, sort of being on your feet a lot. So maybe you need to look at other events if you're doing this all the time. I think
that at the end of the day, the point is that while walking is not necessarily training, you do have to factor in the cost, the physical cost, the impact, the fatigue that's going to build up from walking all day, and factor that into your program. You can't necessarily not do any easy running because you're walking so much, because it's not really training you for that low aerobic zone. But you do have to factor in how much walking you've done before you do your training or in your training program. You can't expect to be on your feet all day and then smash out those solid sessions at the end of the long day. You need to do it the other way around.
Yeah, good question though. Next one from Robert Hebb. I have a permanent static trainer set up in my pain cave and have multiple bikes. I use the trainer a lot during the week due to the limited time and try to get out of my road bike at weekends. Would it be better to have my triathlon bike on the trainer or one of my road bikes on the trainer? Really good question, and obviously it sounds like you've got a great setup. So
the
good
perfect
job.
setup, road and trial bike. I guess it depends what your goals are. If your goal is to race a triathlon well, and you only ever have your triathlon bike inside on the turbo trainer, you're going to be sacrificing some comfort and also some balance and cornering ability, that kind of thing, on race day because you've never had your tri bike out on the road. Conversely, if you only ever got your tri bike out on the road, it's hard to do those really hard sessions, the really head down, focus on your watts for 20, 30-minute intervals, that kind of thing, when you're out on the road and there's traffic lights and speed bumps and that kind of thing. My answer would be to alternate weeks. So do a week with your road bike out on the road, your time trial bike on the turbo trainer, and you can really smash out those hard intervals for race day. And then the next week, swap them, have your road bike on the trainer to do those base miles and those easy miles and those easy spins when you don't have time to go out on the road. But get out on the road in your time trial bike and make sure you're comfortable in the cornering and stay in your aero position and all that kind of thing while you're looking where you're going. That is one of the things when you're on a turbo, you sit on your aero bars and you just look down. You don't even think that
yeah.
I need to look up, and then a race day comes and your neck's really sore.
My tact was always I'd sort of stay on my road bike predominantly through the winter, and then as I got closer to the race season, for me, it was sort of January time was the queue, but that's sort of seasonal for us to race season lay, and then I'd switch over to basically doing a lot on the TT bike, and that meant I do most of my sessions on the turbo on the TT bike, and I start doing as much as possible outdoors as well, because I wanted to, as you say, you want to like hone in and get used to and being relaxed in the TT bikes, because if you're not used to that out on the road, you end up being very tense and sort of fighting the bike to a degree. Yeah. But then any easy rides, I just use the road bike.
Yeah, we know you have the ideal setup. You have a road and a trial bike. Lucky you. And I know changing your bike over on the trainer is a real chore, but really I think you can handle it once a week.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, on to our next question, and it's from Matthew Tones. My friend and I somehow decided to challenge ourselves to do Ironman Maryland and then drive 16 hours to Tennessee to do Ironman Chattanooga the following weekend. Whoa. Bold. I like it. A bit crazy, but I like it. Yeah. Besides the usual stuff, can you suggest some serious recovery we can do in the week in between? Ice bath every day, massive amounts of protein. Any advice is greatly appreciated. Wow, I mean, big turnaround.
That's huge. I mean, I'd be nervous about just doing 270.3s weekend back to back, but
I mean, these guys are bold. I think there are some things you have to consider here. Obviously, the immediate thing that you think of straight away is muscle soreness and fatigue and feeling really lousy. The reality is you're actually going to have some systemic damage. You're going to have that muscle damage. You're going to have sore legs, but those will kind of come back within a week. What you're really thinking about here is more systemic damage. Those waste products building up in your legs and in your liver, and all of that kind of hormonal stress that you put on your body doing an Ironman, that's going to take you a while to recover from, and in fact you probably can't really recover from it in a week, so you have to mitigate that as best as possible. Now, the initial response, and Mark's initial response when I read this question, was get into bed and stay there for the whole week.
I was like, Monday rest, Tuesday rest, all the way through until next week.
The reality is that probably won't actually serve you too well. You need to get out and move. You need to flush those toxins out of your muscles. You need to get moving and stay loose. If you do get into bed for 5 days straight, you will get out and you will not be able to do an Ironman. What I would suggest is, if your race, they've actually got an extra day. I Googled it and they've got an extra day. So they race on Saturday and then the following Sunday. So it's not quite 1 week in between, a little bit more. So that extra day, Sunday, I would say complete rest. Monday, easy swim and bike just to flush some of those systems out. Tuesday, easy bike again to keep flushing some of that stuff out. And then Wednesday, easy swim, keep that feel for the water there. And a longer bike. Now, when I say longer bike, I'm not saying anything hard, nothing race pace, anything like that, but really get out there for long enough that you can really feel like your legs have warmed up and loosened up and you flushed everything out of your system. Thursday and Friday, complete rest, and then Saturday, easy swim, bike, and little jog too, maybe.
Interesting, because I totally agree with you here. You haven't included any runs during the week.
I haven't, no. So, like we said, you're going to get some muscle damage from doing an Ironman. You're going to be hurting already. A run's going to do nothing for you. You're not going to get any fitter on the run, and you're just adding more impact to muscles that have already been smashed, and you want to have them as fresh as possible for race day. So you want to hope that you get some of that bounce back.
Yeah, and just to sort of second and echo James's a discussion around the systemic damage. I mean, the things that happen to your body after an Ironman or ultra are just absurd. They don't happen after normal events. Just hormonal things happen, all sorts of stuff. Night sweats, and so they are big events and they need to be respected. And if you can even go into that first event just well hydrated, and obviously this is a bit of a big challenge, just probably pace it well and think about that second event. But I mean, this is important for anyone out there doing any event. Just that recovery is so important. And
like Mark said, I've said you should do some exercise, and you should, in between that exercise, sleep as much as you can, off your feet, rest, feet up as much as you can. One final, probably important piece of advice I would say for this particular challenge is the best way to prepare for it is to be really, really, really ridiculously fit. come September. Because the fitter you are, the easier you're going to be able to deal with this challenge, the easier you'll recover in between those. So I would get on that right away for those September races.
Yeah, good stuff. Next question, then, swimming related question from David Fritz, who sent in quite a few questions before, actually, good questions. I have a question about building swim speed. I'm a good runner and cyclist, but I lose the races in the water. When building speed in swimming is the same type of approach as with running effective. So build the base, then once a good base level is built, introduce more interval work, or is building a base less relevant for swimming? They say they're also for half or iron distance, what would be a good base level to get to before bringing in and focusing on intervals? Yeah, as I said, really good question. Fortunately, swimming isn't really like running. So with swimming, as we've discussed quite a few times here, it's a very technical sport. So just sort of approaching it, just sort of a base approach isn't really going to cut it here.
No, with running and cycling, cycling's semi-impact, running's fully impact, and you need to build up your body to be able to handle those impacts before you do the hard running, the fast running, the really intense stuff. Swimming isn't impact-based, and swimming is technique-based. So if you start your swimming with a base phase and you go really slowly and you crawl along really, really gently to begin with, you're not learning that technique at the speed that you want to have the technique at, and secondly, you're not really building any kind of tolerance to faster speeds later on. So it's not quite the same as you periodize your swimming. You do actually want to be doing faster stuff very early on in your sessions, in your program, but you want to keep those really short so that you can maintain your good technique throughout the faster stuff that you're doing. So longer recovery intervals and longer intervals with shorter, higher intensity stuff, but right from the beginning, not this base phase where you do nothing for 10 to 12 weeks while you build up the tolerance. That's for running. That's not so much the case in swimming. Swimming is about technique.
You actually made a really good point there. So something actually a coach said to me years ago, working on technique or you're trying to make tweaks to your stroke, is as soon as you feel the stroke fall apart when you're doing intervals or hard work, stop. It doesn't mean stop the session altogether, but just stop, collect yourself, reset, go again. I think a lot of times we feel like, right, we're doing 2100s and I've got to do those 2100s in one go. But if you are really working on your technique, which it sounds like you probably are because it's your weaker discipline, then there's nothing to be ashamed of by just stopping and resetting and getting that all together and then carrying on.
Absolutely. If your coach has set you certain recovery intervals and you just are feeling like your arms are starting to fall apart and your stroke struggles, increase the recovery intervals so that you can get through the rest of them with good form, not just smashing the water.
Everyone's going to be using that excuse now when they're
it's
hard
that James said I should have a longer rest.
Also, it's sort of we've touched on this, but as you get closer to the race, a good kind of rule of thumb is as you're doing these sort of intervals is targeting that race distance, then splitting off into intervals such as sort of like if you're doing a half Ironman, 1900 meters, you might do 19 or 2100s in the pool. So just a good way of working with that. So yeah.
Again, thinking about maintaining your form through the whole race distance rather than swimming the whole race distance in one go.
Nice. Final question from Juan Perez. Hey guys, I'm in doubts here. I've been in triathlon for about a year and a half and haven't had a coach yet. Some friends have recommended me some coaches and I've been interested. Also, the thing is that when I've raced these friends of mine, I beat most of them in a sprint triathlon. So I've wondered if I should just keep buying these Training Peaks plans that seem to have worked for me so far, or just pay for a coach. I'm confused because I know I can potentially be a lot better with coaching, but seeing that I'm already pretty good, then do I need one? Crossroads.
I guess it depends on what your goals are, doesn't it? If your goal is to just keep beating those friends of yours, then you've got it in the bag and keep doing basic plans. If your goal is to get the best you can out of yourself and see what your absolute limits are in triathlon, then a coach is going to help you get there. Basically, the coach is going to be able to take that extra 5-10% out of your performance or add it to your performance that you can't do just on basic plans. It has to be personalized and tailored to you. You can't do this just with a generic plan off the internet or anything like that. To get your best out, you do need a coach to personalize it, customize it for you. However, if you're happy just smashing your mates, then
well,
then
yeah,
enjoy
I mean,
it.
this is the thing. I mean, there's so many different avenues we can go down. It's a big topic. Obviously, everyone is different, and some people maybe come in with, they're happy to do a bit of research. They'll use a Training Peaks plan, but they do a lot of research into it, and then it's just sort of like tailoring little bits to you. Some people just don't work well with a coach. They just like to take a program and just do it in their own time without having to talk to anyone. But equally, I could say you can find coaches that would help you on that and still give you a bespoke plan. So there's so many ways we can cut this, really.
If you're enjoying it and you're having fun with your triathlon, then carry on doing what you're doing. In fact, just keep doing what you're doing until your mates start getting really close to you at the finish line, and then you can hire a coach and pull away from them.
Great stuff. We've had some fantastic questions. As James said at the start, please do keep them coming in using that hashtag GTN Coaches Corner, or drop them in the comment section below this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. Give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe.